everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know I had a lot of new subscribers off the back of my TBR jar video, so if you did subscribe then thank you, and I hope you're enjoying the rest of the videos on my channel as well. Yeah, thank you. So in today's video we are going to be going book shopping again, and I'm going to be going into London so that we can go to the Piccadilly Circus Waterstones again, because it's the biggest Waterstones in the UK and it's got 6 floors, and I just know it's going to have all the books I'm after. It's also going to be a really sunny day, so yeah, I'm just hoping we can just have a chilled day, look around Waterstones, get the books I'm after, and then have a nice stroll around London. I'm going to be going with my boyfriend as well, so he can carry the books to start with, which is nice, and then we can just have a nice stroll, go for lunch, and I'm hoping we can finish up in, like, there's a rooftop bar that I've heard of in like East London, I think it is, which is back more our way anyway, so it'd be nice if we can end the day at a nice rooftop bar. Just a really nice sunny chilled day in London, and book shopping as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to going out today. But the main reason I want to go book shopping today is because I want to expand my physical book collection. I have a romance shelf and my fantasy shelf. When I first started getting into reading, and they are just my go-to genres. I love fantasy, although I'm kind of not loving it at the moment. I can't really get into a fantasy right now. I think it's the warm weather and I'm like drifting more towards like romance. So I have my fantasy shelf, which I love. I have my romance shelf, which I'm really getting into at the moment, and I love that one too. But I really want to create a shelf for more like general fiction, historical fiction, and just books that don't fall into the romance and fantasy category, because I'm hitting a bit of a wall with them at the moment and none of them are pulling me in, and I'm just feeling like I want to read something a bit different lately, and when I look at my shelves I'm just not that inspired by them and not drawn to them. So yeah, and I think the reason for this as well is because the last book I gave 5 stars was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I really want to go and pick up that book, and books that are similar to that, just a really good story that maybe doesn't follow the same sort of layout as all the fantasy books and romance books I've been reading recently. I just feel like I need a bit of a switch up, I need a bit of a change. So to do that, I'm going to create a whole new shelf on my bookshelf just for like general fiction books, I guess you'd say. So I'm not sure which shelf it's going to be yet. I'm going to have to reorganise it depending on how many I get today. But yeah, so that's why I'm going book shopping, because I want to look more in that section and find some really good books, just give myself a bit more variety. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I know I'm definitely going to be focusing on like Taylor Jenkins Reid. I want to pick up Malibu Rising as a trophy book and a couple of her other books, maybe some by Frederick Backman. I've heard a lot of good things about him, and Kristen Hanna is another one that's kind of on my radar. But if you know of any authors that are like similar to those three, then leave them down below, because I'm really wanting to just branch out at the moment and have something a bit different to read. So I'm going to stop rambling and let's get out into the sun and get going into London. So that was a successful shopping trip, although I didn't get what I was planning on getting. I think I've realised that maybe general fiction might not be for me because Taylor Jenkins Reid and Kristen Hanna were both in the romance section, so maybe I got that a little bit wrong because the fiction section seemed a little bit daunting, to be honest. There's just so much there and so much I hadn't heard of, and it would be great to just sit there and peruse it, but I just had some books that I really wanted to pick up today, so I did end up gravitating back towards the romance section and picked up quite a few books. So we'll do a little haul when I get home. But yeah, we're just in a very busy sort of like passageway in London at the moment. I think we're in Soho. Are we in Soho? We're in Soho, but we just stopped off to get a little matcha from Blank Street because when you're in London, why not? I did get regular milk, and I think I normally get oat milk from Blank Street because it just tastes a little bit funky and it doesn't normally from there. So I'm thinking it's the milk, but still very refreshing. So the plan is now to just have a slow walk through London and hopefully end up at the rooftop bar that I mentioned earlier. I think it's got like a really nice view of the London skyline, which would be nice to just sit there, chill and have a few drinks to end off the day. And then when I get home, either today or tomorrow morning, I'll show you which books I got because I did get quite a few. Good morning. So it's now the next day. We ended up walking for about another half hour yesterday, and then we jumped in an Uber the rest of the way because I didn't realise how far out the place I wanted to go to was. It's over in Hackney Downs, so much further east in London, and I just didn't realise how long it would take to get there. So we jumped in an Uber and we did make it there for sunset. It was a really nice place. It's very casual, very chilled. You can get a wood fire pizza there, which were really nice. And the view of the London skyline from there is really cool. It's just a typical like East London view of the skyline because you can see Canary Wharf and that area, and then you can also see like the financial area with like the Gherkin, a bit of the Shard in the background. But I just really like the view of London from there because it's not so, I don't know, just not being able to see like the London Eye and some of the other typical London landmarks that you can usually see, and instead you've got like a bit of Shoreditch in front of you, like that area. I just really liked the view of London from there. So, and it was so pretty at sunset as well. I'm hoping some of the clips I took will show that. I would say it is a bit out of the way for what it is if you are around like Piccadilly Circus or the Soho area. It's a bit of a trek from there, and there's definitely other places you can go for a drink or a meal around there that are really nice. But if you are more towards like Shoreditch or that sort of area, then definitely go there for sunset because it was really chilled and just a nice place to end the day and have a couple of drinks. But on to the part you're all here for. Let's go through all the books that I picked up at Waterstones yesterday. I did say yesterday that I was hoping to try something new and look at fiction, like general fiction, and away from fantasy and romance, and I did go there with that intention. But I think the thing I didn't anticipate was I was going there because I know they have so much choice, and I was after specific books I knew they would have, and I did get all the books that I wanted. barring one. But as well as being that, it's also just so overwhelming going in there and going into a new section because you just don't know where to start, you don't know where to look. The general fiction section is just so big, and I need to do a lot more research and go there with some recommendations in mind of ones that I want to look at and sections I want to look at, because it was just so overwhelming and I just didn't know where to start. And then when I couldn't find Taylor Jenkins Reid there or Kristen Hanna, I went over to the romance section, and that ended up being where I got all but two of the books from because it's just my comfort zone. I could recognise most of the books that were there and just felt more comfortable having a little browse and picking up something different from there. I did also go up to the fantasy section, and I picked up one book, but it's a trophy book, and I don't know why, because fantasy was the genre that got me back into reading. I'm just really not feeling it at the moment, and I think that's why I'm kind of finding myself wanting to branch out and find something new, because I've not got that like attachment to fantasy that I had a couple of months ago or last month. I do think it could be the weather as well though, because the weather's drawing me more towards romance and those sorts of reads instead. But anyway, we'll just see how the next few months go and how my reading develops and what I find myself reaching towards. The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig is coming out next week, and I do want to read that, so maybe that will ignite my love for fantasy again, because I've heard that's going to be a really good read, so we'll see. But anyway, let's get into the books that I bought yesterday. So I said before I left that I wanted to pick up more from Taylor Jenkins Reid because I just read Malibu Rising and gave it 5 stars. I just thought it was just such a good story, really emotional, but so fun to get like a look into people's lives around that time, because they're set in like the 1980s in Malibu. So I just thought it was really fun and perfect for the weather we were having recently. So I wanted to try more of her books, and I think all of her books are set around the same area and same time, because characters that are mentioned in Malibu Rising all have their own books as well. So it's kind of like an interconnected series, but not really. They're just all set in the same time and place, I think. So the books I got were, I got Carrie Soto is Back, which Carrie Soto is mentioned in Malibu Rising, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this from her point of view and if we see that overlap of that same time that we saw in Malibu Rising. So this is about a tennis player, I believe. Carrie Soto is a professional tennis player who is at the top of her game, I believe. So that's going to be quite a fun read to read about tennis as well, and just more into that side of it as well. So Carrie Soto is Back was the first one that I picked up. And then next up we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think she's a bit older than like Carrie Soto and the family in Malibu Rising, and I think it's kind of looking back on her life, her time around Hollywood, and I think she's just like this wealthy Hollywood actress, and it takes a look back at her life and the 7 husbands that she had along the way. I just think this will be a very interesting story, and I'm so excited to read these books because I just want that peek into these lives that are just so different to my own. I know that this is one of her more popular books, so I am just really intrigued. I think it's just going to be so fun to just get a look at like the life of an old Hollywood actress, if she is an actress. I think she is. It says Hollywood icon, so yeah, I am really looking forward to getting to this one and might pick up this one next. So that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And then the final book I picked up, which I think I've just been showing you as I've just been waving my hands around, but it is Daisy Jones and the Six, which again is one of her more popular books. It follows an up-and-coming band, again around the 80s, I think. Oh no, it looks like this one is going to be set in the 70s. Just another one that I think is just going to be such fun to just get an inside look at the lives of really interesting and different people, and I just really like what she's done with this series. I've only read one of them, but I just think it's such a cool take to take like a big time period around like Hollywood and delve into the different stories of different people around that time. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun reading her books this summer. So those were the 3 books that I got by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I realised after I checked out that I didn't buy Malibu Rising, which I actually wanted to pick up as a trophy book, but they were in in a separate section, these three. They were in like, because she's got Atmosphere coming out this month or next month, they were in a separate section promoting that. So I picked these up from there and then forgot to actually go and look for Malibu Rising. So I'll just have to pick that up another time because it was a 5-star read and one that I want to have on my bookshelf. So those are the books that I got from Taylor Jenkins Reid. And then next up, I picked up Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I've not read any of her books before. I know that Nora Goes Off Script is a very popular book of hers as well, and I do want to read that one as well. So I saw this on the table and I just thought, why not pick it up and give this one a go first? So this is Summer Romance, and I believe it follows, so her mum has died and her husband has left her and she's trying to raise her kids on her own now, but it looks like she's going to have a bit of a summer romance with someone called Ethan. I guess she's going through a lot and she's going to try and have a bit of a fun summer romance while going through all that. I've just heard a lot of people speaking highly of Annabelle Monaghan, and that's about as much as I know of this book, but I'm hoping it'll be a nice summer read for me as well. I'm really into the romance at the moment, and I'm really enjoying how so many romance books have an emotional storyline alongside the funny part. It's not really what I expected when like trying romance books, but it's what I like the most about it because they always get you thinking and they can be a bit emotional but feel good at the same time. So that is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. Okay, and then the one book I did get from the general fiction section, and it was A Man Called Ove, or A Man Called Ove. This is by Fredrik Backman, and a lot of people have read this, a lot of people have spoken about this, and I really want to try this book and I think maybe Anxious People before going into the Beartown trilogy that everyone's just been raving about recently. I do really want to get into that, but I feel like I want to try a couple of these other books first and get to know him, get to know his writing before jumping into that big series. And I also know that that series is going to be really emotional, so I'm just not quite ready for that yet. I'm in my like happy summer romance era, so I thought this one, because it's quite a short read and it's an emotional start. I think he's very grumpy, he's in a really bad place, and from what I've heard I think he kind of comes back to life by meeting some new people and some people he wouldn't have previously interacted with. I'm kind of getting a bit of the vibe of, you know, Up, the Disney film, where it's like grumpy old man and it's that little kid who gives him a new lease of life. I'm kind of thinking that might be a bit of what this is like. Could be a bit emotional to start with, but I'm hoping it's a feel-good one. And I know he is he Swedish? I'll put it on screen here if I'm incorrect there. I think he's Swedish and his books are translated into English, so I think that'll be really interesting as well to see how his books read based on that. So that is A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. Then the next book I picked up is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and if you saw my last video, which was my 24 hours reading video, or attempting to read for 24 hours, I did read this book in that video and wanted to pick this up as a trophy book. I've been looking for this for so long in my local Waterstones and none of them have had it. They always have novel love story by her, so that's why I picked that one up first. But I just really wanted to pick this up. I had a time with it. I think I really enjoyed the first half of this book and I thought it was just so charming and so fun. And then the second half, I actually read between 1 AM and 4 AM. So I think it was a little bit lost on me, a little bit, and I might need to go back and reread that part because it's very fuzzy because of the time I read it, but it's definitely a romance, but it has a very good message. I did take away the message from it and it did really mean something to me when I read it as well. If you saw the video then you'll see why. It's a romance but it has a really good message and it's a lot of fun to read. I gave it 4 stars and I do think it might have been higher if I'd read it at a different time, so I want to go back and read like maybe the last 40% and see what I think now, but it's just one that I wanted on my shelves. So that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I feel like my romance shelf is going to get quite full, which is surprising. And then next up, another trophy book and the only fantasy book I picked up. It is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. Just look at these covers. They're so pretty. I have the first book, Divine Rivals, here as well. So this is why I wanted to pick up the second book, so that I could have them both on my shelves. That's the first book. The covers are just so pretty in this series. So it's a duology, Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. I actually loved Divine Rivals. I think I gave Divine Rivals 4.5 stars, and then Ruthless Vows maybe 3.5. I didn't love it as much, but overall it is just a really sweet YA fantasy duology, and one you should definitely read if you haven't yet, because the first book just got me. It's so sweet, it's so romantic, and I just had such a good time with this one. So the first book, you're getting to know the characters, the romance is building, there's a war happening, and there's just little magical elements, but for the most part it does feel like you're reading a normal non-magical story. There's just these little magical things that happen, and then whenever it's mentioned that the gods are at war, that's when you realise you're in a fantasy, but it doesn't always feel like that. But the romance in the first book was so sweet, and then the second one, we just focused more on like the gods and what was happening there and the war. I can't say too much because it gives away what happens at the end of this one, so it just wasn't my favourite. I preferred the first one where we're seeing them get to know each other more and the romance side of it that's in the first one. But overall, really sweet, really good, and I wanted the second one for my shelf just to complete the duology. So that was Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I just love that that completes the duology on my shelves. And then finally, the last book I picked up was Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, which is her new release. And I read the Part of Your World series this year, and I had such a good time with it. The books are emotional, and she does such a good job at touching on really emotional subjects, but having a really feel-good romance at the same time, which is what I mentioned earlier, which is what I'm starting to really like about romance books. So I knew I would be picking up her new book, Say You'll Remember Me, but I have been putting it off a little bit because I've not heard the best things about it. I don't know what it's about at all, and I might just leave it that way because I want to go in a bit blind. But from what I've heard, she has a lot of like popular culture references in this book, and there's like mention of Rhysand from ACOTAR in it, and I don't know. I think after reading those three and enjoying them so much, and yours truly was a 5-star read for me, I didn't want to jump into this one after hearing those things, because I think after reading those my expectations were just so high. So I did put it off a bit because I started to hear that it maybe wasn't as good as those books, and I think it's a bit unfair to go into this one with the expectations of those and not kind of see it on its own merit, if that makes sense. So I just thought I'll just give it a bit more time, and I will still. I don't think I'll get to this one right away. I want to wait a little bit and create some space between the Part of Your World books and this book so that I go into it without those high expectations and just see for myself what I think of it. I'm sure it is still going to be a good book because it is Abby Jimenez. It might just not wow me or knock my socks off. I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a 5-star for me. I don't know. We'll see when I get to it. So that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. So those were the books that I picked up yesterday. Not very successful in trying to try something new, apart from A Man Called Ove, which I already knew I wanted to pick up anyway. I think it was just how big that Waterstones is. It was just too overwhelming, and yeah, it doesn't really give you the chance to comfortably browse, just like a small selection and then, you know, get a feel from there. So maybe that's not the place for that because it is very overwhelming in there. It's very big. So those are the books I bought yesterday. I hope you enjoyed coming with me and seeing a bit of London, having a look around Waterstones, and yeah, seeing what I picked up. So I'll leave this video here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!